Good morning, good morning, good morning. Yeah, I know. I was trying to figure out how to put a background on this so it looks a little bit different, and I forgot about the time. Oh well. It is what it is, and yeah, we're all good. So give it a little bit here. It's been a great day here this morning. Actually, for the first time in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I got more than 3.5 hours of sleep. I actually got almost 5 hours, which for me is something that is a bit of a record. And you know what I forgot to do again? I got my phone sitting right here, and I forgot to shut off the volume, which I'm going to go do right now. Hi, good morning, Neil. How you doing today? I'm glad that everything's looking good. At least for me, it is. Yeah, I like it when I get a full night's sleep. That don't happen too often. Oh, you know, sometimes people make mistakes. Like I made mistake yesterday. And when it happens, I have to own up to them. Because usually when I make a mistake, it's a pretty good mistake. It's something that I'm proud of. I'm proud of my mistakes because one, they don't happen a whole lot. I may make an error in judgment. I may misspeak, but I mean to actually say, man, I made a mistake. But I'm usually that's that's a little bit on the weird side. And man, I'm glad somebody else is. I mean, it's amazing sleep, how important sleep is to you, and how when you don't get it on a continual basis, when you do finally get a good night's sleep in, how it just changed your whole perspective on things for a little while. You know, you see things a little bit clearer sometimes. But yeah, I mean, when I got home from work last night, I was listening to bouncing back and forth between Mr. Moo and Minions. Mr. Moo had an excellent stream going last night. That was that was fun listening to. That's the first time I've caught him live, and that was a good time to listen to. But I got home last night, and I usually fall asleep listening to The Shadow, old radio programs. And I'll usually go through, they're usually about 25 minutes in length. And I'll usually go through 3, maybe 4 episodes laying in bed in a dark room listening to them. I don't even think I made it through the first episode last night. I mean, I just fell asleep. And then I didn't get home from work until after 11:30 last night. Well, almost midnight, because the boss was he got called into work, and he had been overindulging in adult beverages earlier in the day. So I was a half hour late leaving work. So it was after midnight before I finally got to bed. And then I slept solid until the wife woke me up before she left for work at 6:30. So, yeah, I got a good 5.5 hours of sleep in, and that just really surprised me. But Now, weren't you at the Mr. Moose stream last night? Weren't you part of that conglomeration? Or did I just see you sitting in the chat? Oh. But got some pretty fun stuff here lined up for us here today to listen to. Of course, we've got this major news about Liz Cheney being yanked out from her leadership position in the House. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Liz Cheney. She's still stuck back in the Bush era, G.W. Bush era, and she hasn't caught up with today, what's going on today, what's happening today within the Republican Party. The Bush era was the Bush era. Things have changed. Things have moved on. Other things have become more important. We no longer care about being, as Republicans, we no longer care about being the nice guy sitting there holding back. If Trump taught us anything, it's that you're not going to get anything done by sitting back being Mr. Milquetoast. You've got to get out there and take care of, you got to get out there, present your ideas, be bold about them. This is what Reagan tried to teach us. Be bold about your ideas, be bold in expressing them. Don't take any nonsense from the other side. And when they step up, you step up louder. Don't let them bully you into submission. And then after Reagan, we got George Herbert Walker and Mr. Milquetoast. Then we got his son. And again, I like GW. I supported GW when he first ran. I paid attention, went back, researched how he worked as a governor in Texas. And I was fairly happy with what under his administration until we started getting the Patriot Act in. Then I no longer was a happy man. And now we've got Liz Cheney and a group of Republicans who want that milquetoast president. They don't want somebody out there like Reagan, like Trump, fighting back, not allowing the other side to sit there and abuse them. And you have to remember, Reagan didn't let the press walk on him. Now, was he as bombastic as Trump was? In his own way, yes. In his own way. He was a little more subtle. Reagan used humor a lot, or just a little snide comment to reverse the direction of the press. It's like his one infamous quote where, a reporter said, you're blaming the Democrats for all this stuff going on, but you were a Democrat for so long. Do you bear any of the responsibility? And he said, yeah, I was a Democrat. And then I got smart. You know, he turned that question around on them. And right now, you're right, Neil. There's about I've heard any numbers ranging from 50 to 100 nationwide, not just in Congress, but this is a nationwide. And some of the people I've never really heard of before. That doesn't mean anything. It's like the young man, House member yesterday that gave that wonderful speech. I had never heard of him before until I watched that video on Forbes that are talking about starting a third party. Well, it's not going to work. These guys, and being led by Liz Cheney and Mitt Romney, they're not going to lead any group, and any group they would lead, they're not. It's going to be like the Lincoln Project Republicans, you know, the never Trumpers. They're not going to get the public behind them. They're going to get a few people who are mentally, now I got to be smart about how I say this. They're going to get people who are stuck in the 70s and 80s to join them, who are of that mindset of being the milquetoast, of being the soft-spoken Republicans with who, you know, the Bushes style Republicans who cave into the Democrats, you know, get along type thing. And it's not going to work anymore. The left has managed to mobilize their extremists, the Antifa, the Black Lives Matter, the radical feminists. They've managed to get these people out into the streets. And of course, in the media, they get a lot of popular representation, a lot of popular press, very good press. And now the Republicans, and the mainstream Americans, not the radical left Americans, but the mainstream Americans who found that they were comfortable with what Trump was doing. Now they've gotten vocal. They're getting out to publicly support their candidates, the ones who aren't backing down. I know a lot of people don't like them, but Ted Cruz is one of my favorites. Jim Jordan is another one of my favorites. Trey was one of my favorites while he was in, but Trey Gowdy, but I mean, he knew he wasn't going to last long. But yeah, I've got several favorite Republicans and conservatives that are speaking out. And I need to make myself clear on this too. I am a registered Republican, not because I agree with everything the Republican Party does. I don't. My true affiliation is as a constitutionalist. I believe in what the Constitution says, not what it has been interpreted by so many of the left and the courts to have said. Take the words of the Constitution as they are written. End of conversation. But this is where we're going to start to have fun. Okay? And I'm going to start with this first little video. And I'm going to share audio. We'll start here with this. Share. Okay. Talked about Jim Jordan earlier. Now, Jim Jordan here was being questioned by CBS this morning. And this is fun. We'll go ahead and let's see here. Get the volume turned up. And here we go.
We are an American first party, a populist party rooted in conservative principle.
Can you be a conservative and disagree with the president about the 2020 election?
Okay. Can you be a conservative and disagree? Yes. We always have abilities to disagree as a conservative. All right. You can honestly believe that there was nothing wrong with the 2020 election. And now I don't know I don't know very many who follow in lockstep like the Democrats do. You're right. But getting back to this, the 2020 election, my personal feelings is that there was an organized attempt in a successful organized attempt in several major cities in various states that swayed the election. That's my personal opinion.
I don't think it's helpful. I think we should be focused on making sure that we have integrity in our elections going forward. That's what I've always said about. There are millions of Americans who have concerns about what happened in this last election. I've never said this election was stolen. All I've said is let's check it out.
Do those concerns originate with their own organic knowledge or because they hear President Trump say over?
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, it happened for me. I had concerns watching the returns, the election night. What happened in Georgia? What happened in Philadelphia? You're right. I am being careful. I have concerns, but the way to get around the concerns, to alleviate people's concerns, is not to say you can't inspect them, you can't audit them, you can't go back and verify things to make certain that everything happened according to Hoyle. Biden is president. Nothing that is going to happen as far as recounts or audits or anything else, investigations about the election is going to change that. Biden and Kamala are in office. The Democrats have control. Nothing's going to change that. But what we need to do is go back through the election itself, verify, see what's happened and that has caused concerns amongst almost half of the population of the country, and address them and ensure that what has caused those concerns won't happen again.
Over and over and over, it was stolen from him.
It originated with them. Of course it did.
Trump had nothing to do with that.
Well, all I'm saying is 80 million Americans instinctively know, regardless of what President Trump may or may not have said, they know. Well, think about it. I think maybe to reassure the American people, 80 million of them, both Republicans and Democrats who have those concerns, why not look into it? That's all I've said all along. But somehow, oh, that's crazy. You can't do that. Makes so much sense to me.
Court selection.
So he's saying basically the same thing I said. If you want to alleviate me and others from asking questions and having my concerns, then let's address them. Let's address these concerns. Let's put in place policies that will prevent these concerns from coming up again in the future.
Officials and the former president's own Justice Department looked into the 2020 election and found no evidence to overturn the result in any state. And yet,
okay, now this is a misstatement of the facts. There has not been any complete investigations. It's a misstatement of the facts. We know that. But the left wants to talk about the big lie and, Trump's spreading the big lie, but it's not Trump spreading a big lie. It's people making statements like that that's spreading the big lie.
election officials and the former president's own Justice Department looked into the 2020 election and found no evidence to overturn the result in any state. And yet, Mr. Trump continues to tell his supporters the election was a fraud.
The undisputed leader of the Republican Party is
President Trump.
for how long?
I think he's going to run again, and I'm all for that.
I will do everything I can to ensure that the former president never again gets anywhere near the Oval Office.
And you can't have the Republican conference chair, the Republican Party.
Now, this is why Cheney lost her position. Statements like that. Okay, she can come out and say what she wants to say. That's fine. No, I'm not going to tell her she can't. She's got the right to say what she wants to say. All that's good. But if what you're saying is making your base angry at you, then you can't be in a leadership position. If you want to be in the leadership position, you've got to make you've got to convince the base, your supporters, the people that you are there to represent. You've got to be saying things, doing things that they want you to do. And you're right, she has the right to speak out against somebody running. She has the right to campaign against anybody that she wants to. That's fine. She's got the rights. There's no one's trying to stop her from those rights. But she doesn't have the right to be in a leadership position.
Party spokesperson consistently attacking the leader of the party who 74 million Americans voted for.
In your party, there's a large conversation about cancel culture. Has Liz Cheney been canceled?
No, she has not been canceled. She was removed from a leadership position. She's not been told to shut up. She's not been told to that she can't say what she wants to say. She hasn't been kicked out of Congress. She hasn't lost her committee positions. She's just been removed from a leadership position because her position is not being supported by the people who put her in that leadership position. She's been recalled. Just like Gavin Newsom's been recalled, and there's been hundreds of people removed from offices being recalled because once they got in that position, they weren't doing what the people wanted them to do. So they've been recalled. That's what's happened to her. She has been recalled.
I've never called for her step down resign from Congress. I do think there's a big difference, though, between whether you're going to be in Congress or not and us deciding as Republicans in Congress who's going to be our spokesperson.
Trump has described Cheney as a warmonger and yesterday called her a bitter, horrible human being.
And what has she said about him? Now, what has she said about she has not been very nice in what she has said about Trump. But see, they're presenting one side of the story. The side, orange man bad. They have not presented what she's said, what she has called about, what she's said about him, what she's called him.
Is Cheney a bitter, horrible human being?
Look, I've worked with Liz. I've said all along that I don't think she should be conference chair. I was.
But you know what I'm driving at. The former president has language that is highly personal at times and insulting. Do you agree with any of it in regards to Liz Cheney?
Well, I think in this situation, Liz has said some things about the president. I think it's probably elevated the rhetoric a little bit, and sometimes he comes back. That's human nature. I understand that.
It's very sad.
Yeah.
It is. It's very, very sad to me what has happened to Liz Cheney, that for telling the truth, something we all teach.
Okay, for telling the truth. Okay, whose truth? Okay, this is a situation where Liz Cheney has not been telling all the truth. And the media, she's been telling the truth that the media wants. Well, hey, Ryan, how's it going? I'm sorry I missed you. Okay. This is not the truth as I see it. This is not the truth I see. This is not the truth that I know, what Liz Cheney's been saying. Now, Liz Cheney's been saying her opinions. But for the media to say that she's been telling the truth is a lie. And the media never liked Liz Cheney. Don't think they've supported her. They did not like Liz Cheney until she decided to be an anti-Trumper. And that's when they decided that they liked her. But they only liked her position on Trump. They didn't like anything else she ever said or did. No, regardless of how they're acting right now, they have never liked what she said or did before then. But now they seem to like her. So this is one of the reasons why I can't watch the morning news. I've got to take the stuff in small batches because my blood pressure goes up because I see these people are a bunch of lying SOBs. I just can't take them for long. When they inject their personal opinions into the news and they distort it, they don't tell the full story. They, much like the questions there being asked, well, Trump has said this, this, and this. Isn't that wrong? Well, have you paid attention to what she said about him? It's not a one-sided battle there. So, it's not the truth. It really isn't. But this is what we have to fight against. This is what we need as Republicans. This is what we need to get out there and fight against. And it's going to be very difficult because 90% of the media is on one side. They're blatantly on one side. And to get out there is going to be very difficult. Because everything we say and do is going to be misrepresented. It's not going to be given a fair shake in the media. It's not going to be given a fair shake by the talking heads. And this is why we've got to find our way around the mainstream media to get messages out. This is why the Republican Party needs to be getting out there and talking to the people more often. Trump showed it. A person getting out there with the right message can draw in huge, massive groups to get his message out, regardless of how the media reacts to it, regardless of what the traps the Democrats. Remember, the Democratic Party hired people to go out to Trump's rallies before the election to cause trouble, to protest. They hired people to go out there and throw eggs at people. The Democratic Party did that. All those protests that were blamed at Trump. These protesters, that's Trump's fault that these guys are out here doing this because he's such a racist. He's wants to put up a border wall, and that it's all Trump's fault. No, that's not Trump's fault. You're right, Neil. And that's because Trump, much like, and I've got to remind people that Reagan did the same thing. His style was different. Yes, Reagan's style was different, but he still got out there and said nearly the same things Trump said. He supported many of the same ideas. America first. Remember, Trump walked out of negotiations with Russia and Reykjavik. He walked out. And the media was all aghast. His tear down this wall speech. Oh my God, that even his speech writers told him not to put that line in. But he did it anyway. So Reagan and Trump, they're birds of a feather. Different styles, undoubtedly. You can't say that they're the same style. But their message was nearly the same. America first, the working person first. Not the working person is defined by the Democratic Party, but the small businessman, the people who worked for the small businessman and woman, getting them up there, getting them under solid ground, taking care of them, supporting the person. That, the idea that we're all Americans, regardless of skin color or anything else. We're not African Americans. We're not Irish Americans. We're not German Americans. We're not Italian Americans. We're Americans. That was the message that these two men that formed huge support amongst the American people. They're the ones, that was the message that was given out to us. And the people coalesced around them. And the media hated it. The media hated Reagan because of his message. And we all see how the media hates Trump because of his message. This is where we need to have our support thrown behind. We've got to support. We don't need to support people like Liz Cheney. We don't need to support her. Her message is being of a milquetoast. We don't need that in our party. We don't need that in a leadership position. If you want to be milquetoast, yeah, go ahead and be milquetoast. You don't like Trump, fine. Don't like Trump. You want to support somebody else, fine. But you're not also, but you have to support the ideas of the Republican Party. America first. The conservative values. America first. We don't need to be importing thousands and millions of illegals to do jobs when we've got American citizens without a job. I used to, before I stopped watching TV, I used to really like watching the Five. They really had a good group of women on there. I've heard that it's taken a particular bent here in the past year or so, because it's probably been 2 years now since I've pretty much stopped watching. Actually, it's been a little bit over. It's been about 2.5 years now, because after the hurricane hit us, I've never really picked up the habit of watching TV again. At least the news stations, and paying a lot of attention to what those mouthpieces put out. So now here's something else that was a little bit fun this one here is just fun. This is just fun to listen to. We can have some fun with this one. Okay, let's see. Boy, it's getting a little quicker here today on sharing the screen. So I've got this queued up to where I want it.
My expectation and hope is that this will be closing down sooner than later.
Well, I'm sorry. This isn't the one I wanted to have fun with. This is my fault. I'm sorry. This is, let me back this up again. This is serious here. Biden is going to take a lot of flack for this from within his own party.
That this will be closing down sooner than later. But Israel has a right to defend itself when you have thousands of rockets flying into your territory. But
that statement right there. That was as loud as I could get it. I had it up full volume. That was as loud as I could get it. But what he said, if you didn't hear, was that Israel had the right to defend itself from these attacks. That is going to draw him a lot of infighting from within the Democratic Party, because you've got about 15 House members and 4 or 5 Senate members who detest. They want to see Israel disappear. They want to see Israel gone. It would not bother them to see every Jew in Israel destroyed. And, of course, we got the squad there in the House. And for Biden to pop up there just now and say that he supported Israel in defending themselves from the attacks out of Gaza here these past few days, that is going to, while he's actually saying the right thing, I actually agree with him. He's right. Israel does have the right to defend himself. But there are enough people in the Democratic Party, both elected and unelected, that strongly disagree with him that this is going to cause problems. I hadn't seen Psaki trying to walk that back yet, but I fully expect it to be walked back. I fully expect that to get somebody to try to walk that back a bit. And it's a shame. It's a shame, but that's what I expect to see happen. As much as I detested Obama, there's a few things that he did right. Obama did do some things right. When the one cargo ship was captured by the pirates, and he sent the Navy in. Yahoo! Congratulations. When he allowed the SEAL Team 6 to go in after bin Laden. Yahoo! Congratulations. You did right. So there were things that they did that, you know, that even these things do right on occasions. Even people I strongly disagree with on politics, I will admit and fully, agree and support some of their decisions, because some of their decisions are right. They're not always wrong. They're just wrong 90% of the time. But when they're wrong 90% of the time, that means they're right 10%, and I'll give them the credit for being right 10%. I've got no problem with that. So, when somebody does something right, I'm going to acknowledge it. Okay, everybody does have the right. Okay, everybody has the right to live. Was Obama ever friends with Osama? I have no idea. I have no idea. I never looked at that. People do have the right to live until they give up that right. I'm just going to put it that way. You can give up your right to live, like you can give up your right to freedom. You can give up your rights by your own actions. And I'm just going to leave that at that for now. But those comments by Biden there, he's absolutely right. And because he's right, it's going to draw him a lot of problems within the Democratic Party. Now, this next one here is going to be long. I mean, this is a 16-minute audio video here. And, okay, let's see. Wonder if the fact he was friends with the Bush family, if you had any decision to take out Osama. I think even, I don't think that, I think even Obama recognized the fact that America as a country wanted revenge, and only Osama's blood would satisfy that want for revenge for what happened on 9/11. I believe that even Obama recognized that fact. The fact that they did not ever release photographs of his dead body, and that they buried him at sea in according to Muslim traditions. I know a lot of people questioned whether Osama was actually killed. And that could be a problem. It didn't develop it. I thought then it was going to be a big problem, that that there'd be a lot of conspiracies that Osama actually was not killed in that raid. And this is one time that I am going to say that until given other evidence, I'm going to believe the official line, the government line on that. Oh, Ryan, that's mean. I like it though. That's. But I mean, I've got to hopefully trust the government line on this. Osama was killed, and that in order to not cause more problems down the road, that's why they did the Muslim burial at sea and didn't display the body and everything else, that they didn't make a big public affair of his death beyond simply announcing it, that they didn't display the body or anything else. And that's what, I mean, I've accepted that for years now, and nobody's shown me anything to convince me I was wrong in actually accepting that. So that's what I'm going to go with there. Okay. Now, this next video here I got set up from some hearings. Right, yeah. The guy who claimed to actually be the person who killed Osama, who fired the bullets, he made the rounds, especially on Fox News, for quite, I would say, almost a year and a half, maybe 2 years. He was a frequent guest because of that. Several members of the SEAL team have made public interviews and such. But, I mean, there's always going to be the conspiracy guys out there who say that they were under orders to do that, that, you know, they've been well paid by the government to go out and spread and say that. So, you know, you're not going to ever convince everybody. There's always going to be somebody out there that comes up with a reason as to why not to believe what's going on. And I mean, I've heard them all. And as dirty as our government is, and that's the problem, as dirty as our government is and what they've done in the past, we know they've paid people to lie. We know that we've been lied to by the presidents and by congressmen and by generals and by, I mean, you know, these White House press conferences with Psaki is nothing but a circle back lie to begin with from start to finish. So, you know, anybody can make any conspiracy sound reasonable given the history of our government and how they've lied to the American people. So what you've got to do is pick and choose, you know, what story, what lines are you going to believe wholeheartedly, and which ones are you going to sit there and say, I'll accept it until somebody shows me something different. And I mean, that's just where I'm going to go at with there. And for the most part right now, I'm accepting that story, the official line, until somebody shows me enough evidence to go the other direction. All right, so we're going to go here. Now, this here is a congressional hearing. We're not going to burn nothing down. Nobody, I don't want to see nothing burned down. I don't want to see nothing burned down. Okay, here's the last one that I've got lined up for today. And this is a long one. The video itself is 16 minutes. I mean, I've already chopped off a minute of it, but this whole thing is fun to listen to, because he's making a point that many of us have asked questions about ourselves, and he's trying to get some answers.
Can one of you please just recite the language I'm seeing in the package that was brought forth on page 6? There is a definition, but I want to just make sure that we're all on the same page. Maybe Ms. Sanborn, if you're able to do that.
I can do that. I have it right in front of me.
Okay.
So it's
Ryan, you're exactly right. We could put the bullet between the eyes, but disgrace in the body crosses the line. But look what we did with now I'm drawing a blank on the name. The guy that we found in the spider hole. The military leader that initiated the attacks on Kuwait and such back the original Gulf War. Okay, they showed his body being dragged, being dragged across the desert. Man, I wish I could. I'm drawing a blank on the name right now. His okay, I want it. Saddam Hussein. I can't believe I drew a blank on that. But remember what the photographs they showed of Saddam Hussein and his dead body. Okay. They published photographs of his dead body. So they showed him being hanged. So yes, photographic evidence was there. So we can't say that we've never done it. We can't say that we've never displayed the dead body of a war criminal, of somebody who's attacked another country or attacked us. Because yes, we have done it. All right, let's get back here to this definition of terrorism. Now, remember, I pulled up the definition of terrorism the other day. Or was that yesterday? But here we go.
Terrorism. Can one of you please just recite the language I'm seeing in the package that was brought forth on page 6? There is a definition, but I want to just make sure that we're all on the same page. Maybe Ms. Sanborn, if you're able to do that.
I can do that. I have it right in front of me.
Okay.
So it's again 18 U.S. Code 2331, Section 5, and I'll just read it. The term domestic terrorism means activities that involve acts dangerous to human life that are a violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state. They must appear to be intended either, one, to intimidate or coerce a civilian population.
Okay. Step 1, to intimidate or coerce the civilian population. We're talking about violent acts which violate the law.
2, to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion.
Aha. Influence the government. Remember, that was the point that I was making, to influence the government to force policy change or a change of government.
Or 3, to affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. And then finally, they must occur within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States.
All right. So we got all that laid out now. It's pretty much what I showed the other day, just a little more in detail. But the primary points being made is that it's to affect change through violent actions. To affect change through violent actions.
Great, thank you for level setting us there. Would you agree that this definition applies to the entire political spectrum, not just the far right, but also the far left and any American or any threat to American lives in between?
Okay, now we all can see where he's he's lining this up. Exactly, Neil. But you can see here, he's setting up the pins. He's setting everything up so that he can knock them all down in one fell swoop.
Absolutely.
And would you agree also that this applies to all races and all ethnicities? Mr. Wegman, you mentioned that this was focused primarily on actions taken against ethnic minorities, in your words, but the reality is this legislation, this law, I should say, is actually applicable to protecting all Americans. Is that an accurate statement?
Totally correct. It would be on race, on whatever the race might be, would be covered. Absolutely.
All right. So now, again, he has set up even more pins here. He's Mike Garcia is really doing a good job setting everything up, getting the answers that he wants. And we can see where this is going. And these guys here know where he's going. They can see it, but they don't have a choice in how they have to answer the questions.
Absolutely. And so my question is, relative to what we've seen over the course of the last year and a half in cities like Portland, Seattle, and Minneapolis, where we have organizations and individuals not just protesting, which is obviously constitutional and encouraged. Peaceful protests are the core of our American heritage and should be encouraged, but these protests have devolved into riots, looting, the destructions of small businesses, the occupation in many times of cities and suburbs and small segments of metropolitan areas.
He's describing everything that's been going on. He's making a great point here. He's setting up more pins. He's setting them up
with the interest of intimidating or coercing a civilian population, of influencing the policy of governments by intimidation or coercion, and to affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping. I think there's been murders in several of these cities. Are these riots and destruction in these various metropolitan areas like Portland, Seattle, and Minneapolis being treated as acts of domestic terrorists as defined by the law as you described?
So I do believe the previous Attorney General did conclude that some of those acts were qualified as domestic terrorism, and what we would do in any case is apply the evidence in any specific case.
All right, now the man just admitted that many of these acts can be and should have been defined as domestic terrorism under the law. Now, forgive me if I'm wrong, and I may have missed it, but as far as I know, most of the people caught and arrested at the crime scene, at the scene of the crime, not weeks later, not months later, at the scene, have all had their charges. The vast majority had all the charges dropped against them. There's been a small number who still have charges against them, but the vast majority haven't been charged. Am I right on that, or am I misremembering something?
Against this legal standard, and if it meets that legal standard, absolutely it would be considered domestic terrorism.
Do you have any idea how many active charges or cases are actually in the system right now for domestic terrorism relative to the riots in the various metropolitan areas?
So again, as I explained earlier in my testimony, there isn't a federal domestic terrorism charge. There typically are types of charges. It could be riots, it could be threats, it could be assaulting a federal officer, et cetera. So there's not necessarily on the face of the charges indication as to whether in that particular case it qualifies as domestic terrorism. So that would be individualized based on each case. But I do know that there were several hundred charges brought as a result of unrest over the last summer between May and let's say September. So there were several hundred federal charges. I don't know the number of state charges.
Okay, and then just to help us put to bed or help in the debate of an issue that we've seen is a statement from a sitting official, elected official.
Okay, now we can see where he's going to go here. We can see where he's starting to go here, and this is going to be again this. We know where this is heading.
Whether a member of Congress or state legislature, along the lines of we need to become more confrontational in our protests in the midst of a heated environment around race issues. Would you consider that to fall underneath the definition of the criminal code as you described earlier, domestic terrorism?
Again,
Now, I think he was a little bit wrong there. I think he should have had them read the incitement to violence statutes versus terrorism statutes on this point. So I think he's making a little bit of a leap here. With trying to go for the terrorism charge and stuff and incitement charge.
in general, I wouldn't want to comment on hypotheticals, but on that, it clearly wouldn't meet the definition because there's not an act dangerous to human life or anything like that. So
there's not coercion in inferences in that statement?
I would not think that statement alone would qualify.
Okay, thank you, sir. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Okay, now this is again, you know, the man is actually pointed out what I was saying is that it's more of an incitement charge than a terrorism. John Sullivan is the one person that was never charged, and he actually made a ton of money at it. You're going to have to remind me who John Sullivan was. The name is ringing a bell, but I'm not being able to put John Sullivan, Black Lives Matter. Okay. Well, he was arrested, wasn't he? I mean, I'm reading an article here where John Sullivan was arrested due to his involvement at the Capitol Hill riots. Okay, that's why I know this character. He's the one. He was wearing a Trump hat, wasn't he? And egging on the people taking over into the Capitol Hill. So wasn't there pictures of him wearing the Trump hat, communicating with people via walkie-talkie? And yeah. Okay. Well, he was arrested and charged. Did the charges on him get dropped? But he was still charged, and he's still facing charges, isn't he? Now, granted, he was let go, and there's been people, other people that have been sitting in there now for, basically in solitary confinement. The guy that was the Viking dude whose picture was taken sitting there at the Pelosi's desk. Isn't he still sitting in jail? But anyway, okay, let's go back here to Mike Garcia.
At this time, the chair recognizes Representative Christ for 5 minutes of questions.
terrorism itself is not an applicable or available. Domestic terrorism.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Klein, Mr. Garcia, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to follow up on our previous conversation. We defined domestic terrorism. We talked about some of the cases or some of the situations around the nation in our metropolitan areas, as well as January 6th. You ended with Mr. Weidman that domestic terrorism itself is not an applicable or available charge. That's a correct statement, right? I just want to make sure that I captured that last statement correctly.
That's correct. There is no domestic terrorism offense as such.
Now, that's interesting, all right, because if you'd listen to the media and to congressional idiots on the left-hand side and news reporters and everybody else, there are domestic violence charges that could be brought. But this guy here is saying there is no such charge in and of itself. So that would lead me to believe there's the only charges that could be brought are international terrorism charges. This is interesting. And this is also a little bit scary because this is lead me to believe that there could be changes to the law where there could be federal domestic violence charges, domestic terrorism charges, which would then, that would be used as a political tool, no doubt about it.
With the federal code, it does provide the enhancements, one of which you talked about, which is maximizing the statutory, enhancing the statutory maximums for offenses involving or intended to facilitate domestic or international terrorism. But it also defines other expanded investigative tools and beyond just the sentencing enhancements to include.
Okay, now this is again, this here's something interesting that I wasn't aware of, that they can, even though there's no actual charge that can be brought, by labeling it as such, there's enhancements to the punishment. But then it also appears there's other neat little tricks the government can pull. Even though you're not charged, even though there's no crime that you're actually charged with, by having your actions or yourself labeled as a domestic terrorist, the government can do this stuff.
Search warrants, expediting search warrants and investigations, reducing delays, allowing judges to grant orders, giving investigators greater access to certain educational and taxpayer records in domestic and international terrorism. There's a few other things, the statutory maximums probably being the most important piece of that. I guess to follow up on the questions that I had relative to really any of the events over the last, call it, year and a half, are you seeing the application of any of these enhancement tools to either the events on, well, let's start with the events on January 6th. Are the enhancement tools available as defined under this domestic terrorism clause being applied at all to folks who were arrested or investigated during January 6th events?
All right. Now, I stopped there for a specific reason. What are the odds that you would say that somebody is being charged from January 6th for that all these neat little things are happening? What are the odds that this stuff is going on? I do believe that he's being that dance, and I didn't pay attention to this earlier when I previewed this video, but yeah, I believe that there are enhancements that they are using these things against January 6th
So those are ongoing cases. I don't think we've gotten any cases that have gotten to that stage yet in terms of sentencing. So I don't think we'd be in a position yet to.
But there's tools that are pre-sentencing, right? There's the application of search warrants in cases involving domestic terrorism. Outside of their districts, judges can now authorize search warrants, expedited search warrants. Judges may grant orders giving investigators greater access to certain educational and taxpayer records. Have any of those tools pre-sentencing been applied for the events of January 6th?
It's a good question. I don't know the answer. My expectation would be some of them would. I know that some people, for example, have been held in pretrial detention, and that we have invoked that provision that is a presumption for pretrial detention in those cases. I don't know if Ms. Sanborn has any more specific information about that.
Oh yeah, there have been people simply because of they were supporting Trump. They are still being held in prison. They didn't commit half the crimes that have been committed in other parts of the country. They haven't set any buildings on fire, but they're still being held confined as domestic terrorists.
That's correct.
Ms. Sanborn?
Nothing to add to what Brad.
Okay. Have any of these enhancement tools been applied either in the pre-sentencing or sentencing stage, which I'm assuming we are there now for riots in cities like Portland, Seattle, or Minneapolis?
Any guesses? Any guesses what the answers are going to be? I'm going to say that it's going to be a flat right no across the board.
So it's a good question, Congressman. I just don't know the answer. I'll get back to you. See if
I think it's really important to understand that. I mean, if we're talking about how prolific and expanded domestic violence, domestic terrorism is, and DVE is becoming more prolific, I think it's very important, especially with these agencies, to understand where we are applying these enhancements as defined under the code as you've outlined. And really understand not only where they're being used, but the effectivity of their use, so that we can communicate to our constituents what the government is doing to protect them. I think that's very important.
Yeah, it is important that we know that the laws are being applied fairly. We already know they're not, but but they should be being applied fairly and evenly across the board. But because the protesters, the mostly peaceful protesters in Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, and other areas have done billions of dollars worth of damage, set buildings on fire, haven't been charged because they are the media darlings. Don't forget, reporters standing out there in front of a building on fire behind them. Yes, this is mostly peaceful protest. Meanwhile, there's a building engulfed in flames right there.
Has anyone, and I understand that domestic terrorism itself is not an applicable charge, but is terrorism being charged in any of the events around January 6th?
No, there is no terrorism. There is no there are charges related to international terrorism. Those obviously would not be applicable to January 6th, but there is no terrorism charge per se that is being used for the Capitol.
There is a federal crime of terrorism, right? It's not just international terrorism. The crime is terrorism, correct?
No, there's the one that I think of the most is 2339B, which is material support to terrorism. And that's to a designated foreign terrorist organization. So that's only for international.
So there are no terrorism charges, according to this guy, that can be brought. That's fine. Okay. That's interesting. So all this ranting and raving by the left demanding terrorism charges being brought against people on January 6th, that is not really available. And again, this strikes me as very interesting that this is that this is the facts.
There's also terrorism that transcends national boundaries. That's an international terrorism charge. So we have some things in the international terrorism area that are closer to what you would call a terrorism offense that we don't have on the.
Okay, I'm out of time. I'd love to get your input on whether there should be a discrete charge for domestic terrorism under these statutes, but we can defer that for later conversation. I yield back, Mr.
Case and Mr. Garcia, we recognize you for the last 5 minutes of questions. Make them good ones.
Yeah.
Now, see, I really appreciate Forbes doing this. They've taken 3 rounds of questionings here by Mr. Garcia, and they've spliced them all together. All right. So this really, I appreciate that Forbes did this. This really makes the focus of his questions come to life. All right, you can actually see how he set everything up. You can see where he's going on his questioning, and rather than it being broken up with nonsensical stuff, it's concentrated. And I appreciate that Forbes did this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll do my best. Ms. Sanborn, you mentioned something a few minutes ago where you said, I think I've got it written down, that there's only been one member who has self-identified as Antifa that went on to commit violent acts that you're aware of. I think you cited, I think it was Mr. Michael Reinl who killed Aaron Danielson as the example of that. Is what I just stated what you meant?
Now we should all remember who that is. That's the guy that was killed. He was actually set up to be killed on the streets. And that was, and it was, hey, here's a Trump supporter.
To say only one person who has self-identified as Antifa went on to commit violent acts?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question because it does afford some clarification. So of our predicated subjects, so of people that are on our radar screen, in my last 1 year as the assistant director, I cannot think, it doesn't mean that there's not one there, I can't remember, but I can only think of one subject that self-identified with Antifa. So part of our anarchist violent extremist cases that went on to conduct a violent act, and that would be Mr. Reinhold. So it's very possible that other self-identifying Antifa individuals might have done something that just are not an FBI predicated case or not on our radar.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I would submit there's been dozens, if not hundreds, of self-identified Antifa members who have maybe not killed someone or committed murder, but have been looting, violently confronting law enforcement around our nation in various cities, have started fires, torn down businesses, et cetera. So I just want to make sure that we're not, while we're putting a spotlight on what you all have called the far right domestic violence, so that we're not also forgetting those from the far left. And
that's exactly, he is bringing this up quite succinctly here. The media and everybody is claiming that the far right is the biggest threat to America. Remember, they've, intelligence agencies are saying the far right's the biggest danger to the Constitution and to America. Meanwhile, it's been the far left that has been causing billions of dollars worth of damage, setting federal buildings on fire with federal employees inside. They've blocked doors of police stations and then attempted to set the police stations on fire. So I'm not understanding where they're claiming that the far right is more dangerous than the far left. They're both dangerous. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the idiots on the right end of the spectrum are any better than the idiots on the left far end of the spectrum. Okay. People doing destruction need to be punished, caught and punished. But thanks to the media attention and the current administration, they are more focused on one incident, January 6th, than the hundreds of incidents across the country over the past year and a half. Remember, at one time, Crowder infiltrated an Antifa group, and they were handing out weapons. They went to the police. The police did nothing. They went to 2 or 3, maybe even 4 different news agencies. Nothing happened. Nobody was arrested. There was nobody broadcast the video that Crowder had of them handing out weapons and telling them how to use them. Nothing. Now, if that had been, and whataboutism coming up, fair warning, whataboutism. If that had been a right-wing group, if that had been Patriot Prayer, or the 3 Percenters, or the Oath Keepers, then there would have been massive arrests, and that video had been all over the news. It's against their agenda. It really is. So, yeah, I mean, I've got my own concerns about what's going on here. And it's not what I want to see.
And frankly, everyone in between. This is a problem that's full spectrum and deserves to be treated as such. Thank you for that clarification. Mr. Wiegman, I apologize. I want to go back to the last question my fadeaway shot from the last round there, if you will. Do you think that having a discrete charge for domestic terrorism is warranted? And if so, why? If not, why not?
As I mentioned in one response to one of the other questions, that's something that we're actively considering. Our overall position is we think we've been pretty successful with the authorities we have already. We have a lot of criminal statutes in our toolkit that we've talked about today that we use. We've been pretty successful. We haven't identified a lot of cases where we can't charge someone based on a lack of authority, but we're looking at it to see whether we think an additional charge would be useful. And if we come up with something, then we would obviously work with the Congress on that.
All right, now this here, an additional charge. This is why, what do we need additional charges for? What do we need additional charges for? If they are causing damage, we've got charges on the books for destruction of personal public properties. We've got charges on the books for destruction of state-owned properties and federal properties. We've got charges available on the books already for that. We got charges on the books available for causing injury and death to other people, with enhancements for if they're state employees, police, etc. So why do we need additional charges to be there. They've already got the enhancements on the books that they can use to go beyond normal search warrants, normal time delays, and to skirt other constitutional rights. So additional charges, it's like somebody being charged with manslaughter, third degree, second degree, and first degree murders, all for the same incident where one person died. Okay, so to my mind, that you're actually being charged 3 times for the same crime, and that, to my mind, is a violation of the double jeopardy charges, double jeopardy law. Okay, have the prosecutor pick a charge and find you guilty of that one charge. Now, okay, if you destroyed a building, you broke into a building, okay, so you got a crime of breaking and entering. If you then set fire to that building, then you got the crime of arson. If you looted that building before the setting fire to it, then you have the charge of a theft. If somebody died in that fire, then you've got the murder charges, or you got the charges related to the death. If somebody got injured in that fire but didn't die, then you have those charges available to you. So while you've got 5 charges for the same incident, the same general incident, each charge is separate for a separate portion of that incident. That's fine. But to say, okay, you are responsible for the death of this individual, so we're now going to charge you with manslaughter, third degree murder, second degree murder, and first degree murder. Well, all that is saying is that you don't know where your charges, what you can prove, so you're going to throw it all up there and let the jury decide, or let the judge decide. And hopefully you get one conviction, but if you're really lucky, you'll get all 3 convictions. Get convictions on all 3 charges. But you only committed one crime. You caused the death of one person. Adding the domestic violence charges, I don't see how that can work, unless what they're planning on doing is you want to use that as a enhancement to the punishments, like hate crime enhancements. But then again, now we're looking at enhancing the, you're not being charged with a crime, you're being charged with something else. So yeah, you're right, the court of public opinion. So I mean, I've got concerns about about any future laws for domestic terrorism and how they would be handled. I think it could be greatly misused and abused.
Okay, and I am keenly interested, as Chairman Cartwright mentioned, I do want to see the data behind the enhancement tools, whether they've been applied, the success of those applications in pre-sentencing and also during the sentencing phase. I think these words matter, the statutes matter, the enhancements matter, and having that close feedback loop on the effects of these enhancements and these tools that are being made available is very important, and it's not just being used as a political tool or to weaponize something against
Okay, being used as a political tool. We know it's being used as a political tool. We know these charges and these investigations are being used as a political tool. They're not being used evenly across the board. We know that. Anybody with a half a brain can see that these charges aren't being brought evenly across the political spectrum.
A certain demographic. So really interested. Just to be clear, the ask is, if we can, especially let's bound it with an 18-month scope here. Places where these enhancement tools, not the charges, but just the tools that come with the enhanced capabilities, have been applied in any of the riots throughout our nation, but also in addition to the events on January 6th. And obviously, if there is any charges that have gotten through the sentencing phase, if there's been any application of the enhanced statutory maximums being.
Now he's putting them on notice. Hey, Clockwork, how's it going? I don't know. Are you one? Yeah. We're all there at one point or another. I've been called that more times than what I care to count. For a while, I thought that was my name, especially when I was working security. I really thought that was my name.
Applied to those charges as a result of having a flavor of domestic terrorism. That's specifically is the information. I'm not asking you to boil the ocean or give us every charge that's currently being looked at that may have these enhancements, but just the riots within our cities related to the various movements, as well as January 6th, if that makes sense.
We'll see if we can what kind of information we can generate for you, sir.
Thank you, sir. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Now, I would love to see the results of that, but it'll be classified. It won't be really. It won't ever. The answers to those questions will never be made public. Oh, I can be, Rex. I can be a horrible person at a drop of a hat. I can go from being the nicest guy trying to help you out and everything else to be the guy standing there saying, all right, you've got 5 seconds to vacate or I'll be calling the police and I will have you arrested. And I will have people arrested. I've done in the past, and I will press charges. I've done that in the past. So, yeah, I mean, I can be that way in a hurry. That's part of my job. That's one of the reasons why the boss loves me and hates me. He loves me when I do it, and he agrees with me, and he hates me when I do it, and he disagrees with me. But it's all part of the job. You know, sometimes I'm wrong in my judgment. Other times I'm good to go. So judgment is what judgment is. You know, everybody's got their own judgment. Well, good morning, Becca. How'd the trial go? How'd the trial go, Becca? Did they come to an agreement last night that that it's over and done with already, or are you still playing with it? You settled last night. Great. That means you didn't all that work for nothing, but at least you didn't have to go to court this morning at 8 o'clock. You were really sounding beat last night on Moo's stream. You were really sounding worn out. Well, good. I'm glad you got some sleep in. Well-deserved sleep. But yeah, I was telling them that when I got home last night and after I told everybody good night, I fell asleep in a hurry last night. I don't think I was awake 20 minutes after I laid down. Well, with the hours you put in this week, yeah, it's been a long week. I'm glad though that it didn't get longer, that somebody said that the people wised up. Well, I'm glad you made it too. It's been an interesting one. We had a nice little I tell you, I really love the Forbes videos that they're putting out on their political stream here. They took like this one here, Garcia, that 3 rounds of questioning, they took and spliced all 3 of his rounds together. So it really worked out nice. Made it a lot easier for me. But anyway, okay, so I can close this out now because there's nothing there. And that is pretty much everything that I had lined up to go with today. It was a pretty mellow day for the most part. The usual tools and fools have been out there, and I tell you, I love Twitter a lot because I sit there and laugh at some of these people. I really do, because they are absolutely foolish in what they say. And it's okay, right? I don't know how I missed you, but you are now a moderator. I just realized that I had skipped you. And what I'm doing is I'm making the original crew that listened to me, I'm going to make all of y'all moderators. That's your reward for being early subs. You may be the only subs I ever get, but that's fine. I can live with that. Oh, Jim Jordan. Oh, okay. He's talking about Israel. I already did. Like I said, now remember I said earlier that Biden is going to have a lot of problems with what he said, and that Israel had the right to defend themselves. And this is okay. I've got no idea what they're talking about. Okay, but I'm going to share this. This is off of looks like it's off of Fox News this morning. This is going to be fun. Share audio. Okay, we're all going to hear this at the same time.
Decades, and it's not going to stop. For decades, and it's not going to stop until there is a 2-state solution, until the settlements stop.
Let's put this in context. The Arabs have been inciting and murdering Jews over the last multiple weeks. They have been throwing stones at Jews who have been worshiping peacefully at the Western Wall. What the Israeli police did is come in to contain the violence, and they were met with violence. But this is not about the Al-Aqsa Mosque, okay? This is not even about a property dispute that's being used as an excuse by the media. This is about incitement and Jew hatred. Look at what's happening all over the world. Jews are being attacked. A woman in France was murdered and thrown out of her window. A Jew today, there was an attempted lynching today in New York City. Jews are being attacked all over the world, and this is nothing different. Creating another Islamist state is not a solution to anything. Completely disarming and getting rid of a terrorist group that's using civilians as human shields, that is the solution. And creating these propaganda narratives to justify the targeting of my children with over 500 rockets is insane.
I'm sorry. Yeah, when Biden came back and supported Israel's defenses, I expected a lot more public blowback than what apparently he's gotten. I don't know if they're just doing it behind the scenes at this point, or if they are just being quiet about it. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I just fully expected a heck of a lot more feedback on it. Cabbage, mashed potatoes. Oh my God. I've got, when I cook, I usually cook way too much. So I end up freezing stuff. And I've got in my freezer a cabbage, corned beef, and potato soup that I made. And the wife and I ate what we could for supper, and there's that much again sitting in a gallon freezer bag in my freezer for later on. Cabbage, mashed potatoes, and ham. Oh, God, that's delicious. Becca, you're right, though. The media is going to cover for them as much as they possibly can. It's going to sit. They're going to sit there and you can see it. The media blew up Trump having to hold a glass of water with two hands there, or being careful going down that ramp. They blew that up, but they're ignoring similar actions by Biden when he fell down the steps going up into Air Force One. Well, yeah, the wind blew him over. What? The wind blew him over? That's absolute ridiculous. So, but the politics, well, yeah, but they're not going to use them on their own people. And that's what would happen if they used them here on this mess. They're not going to nuke themselves. They may turn other countries into a glass and desert, but they're going to try their best not to do it to themselves. Ribs, mashed potatoes, and Brussels sprouts. Okay, you've got me into it, Becca. We're going. Oh, now when you're doing, how are you doing up your ribs? Are you making them? Are you going to do a slow cook? You going to grill them? You doing an pressure cooker, Instapot type thing? Bake them? Yeah, it's a happy shroom. I mean, I'm seeing too much stuff about food. When food comes out, I've got to get happy. Food is happiness. Good food is ecstasy. I love good food. Oven baked with barbecue sauce. Oh yeah. Slow and go around 250, 300 degrees. With the barbecue sauce on there so that it can get in there and come and crust it over to where you bite into it and you get that little bit of a bite going through that barbecue sauce. Oh, that sounds delicious. $250 and slow. Yes, yes. I knew I could trust you to do them right. I knew I could trust you to do it right. That is, oh. I like to pressure cook mine for about 20 minutes with garlic and beer or garlic and apple juice. Then put them into the oven and finish them up in the oven with a homemade barbecue sauce and rub. But I find by doing about 20 minutes in a pressure cooker with that apple juice and garlic, that really helps get that flavor in that meat nice and deep. There's only one way for me to cook steak at the house, and that's out on the grill. But I like what did I do? The wife had a ham steak in the refrigerator the other day, and she didn't know what she wanted to do with it, and she asked me to cook it up. So I sat there and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with it, and pulled out a bag of yellow rice, cooked that up, then put it in the refrigerator to let it get cold again. And while that was doing that, I broke out a bag of frozen veggies and some bag of mixed vegetables and such, some mushrooms, and hit those up in the cast iron skillet at a fairly high heat with some olive oil and a little bit of bacon fat. Three o'clock cooking steaks. Oh yeah. That's 3 a.m. steaks. Okay. Yeah. I know I've hit a few all night diners and had a steak at 3 a.m. Steak and a bunch of potatoes, trying to sop up that alcohol. Yes, I love my mushrooms. I grill up them shrooms, but I hit those things in that cast iron skillet with them frozen veggies and the olive oil and bacon fat. Then cubed up that ham, cut it up into bite-sized pieces, threw that in there, got all that going and up to temperature. Then I took the rice out, took everything out of the skillet, took the rice out of the refrigerator, threw that in that skillet and made it nice and crusty. Then added in all the vegetables and stuff back together. And oh my goodness. That hit it with a soy sauce, a soy-based hot sauce. You need a beer at this time of the, well, I don't know what time it is there. I don't even know what time it is here. It's 11:30 my time, 11:40. So now let's see, what do I got? I may have an adult beverage here come Friday when I'm streaming. That may be something fun. Oh. Oh, Becca, you drunk streaming even. That's cool. Hey, I don't care how you want to eat your steak. I really don't. Just don't put, I mean, this is one thing I got to say Trump deserves slapped severely for. Putting ketchup on a well-done steak. I mean, first of all, you eat shoe leather if you're going to cook a steak well done. And then putting ketchup on it. But I guess that's the only way you can choke down a well-done steak is with ketchup. Taco hell. Ooh. Well, I'm not a big rum drinker. I like black, let's see, what is it? Black spiced rum. But I'd like putting that into coffee. Put a half a shot or so of black spiced rum into a cup of a coffee, and yes, I'm a happy camper. That's some delicious coffee. Back before they got my pain meds working, they got me straightened out on pain meds. That'd be the only way I could start my day. Was doing that. Yeah, I want to say that was Captain Morgan I was buying for their black spiced rum. That and was it the Kraken or something like that? I'm not a Morgan or a Crown fan at all. I don't like the taste of Crown. But then I haven't tried. Well, let's put this. I haven't tried drinking Crown in almost 30 years. So back when I did try it 30-some years ago, I didn't like it. Who knows now? Maybe I would. But yeah, that. Everybody, yeah, them purple sacks. Yep. I had a friend of mine gave me one that I used to keep as a dice bag when I played D&D. When I was being a dungeon master for D&D, kept all my dice in there. They made great dice bags. But the Jameson's I found, Jameson Stout. I posted a picture of that a while back. Yeah, we used to do. Oh God, THACO. My son plays D&D with a group of guys on occasion, and they asked me to. My son came who got all my books, and I got interested because I had first edition stuff, and well, see, you wouldn't survive in my style of D&D because I play THACO. I don't play this new stuff. I don't play these new games. When they got rid of THACO, that's when I stopped playing. But one of the worst, I pulled some dirty tricks as a DM. I pulled some dirty tricks on people. I never did it to no one that didn't deserve it, but I did do it to a few people. I had to teach them you don't piss off the DM. You don't play stupid in my dungeons. You play smart or die. That's all there is to it. Nerd alert, nerd alert. Well, yeah, I had all the first edition books, and I had first and second edition books. And my son borrowed them. He borrowed all my character sheets. He borrowed all my monster sheets. He borrowed my dungeons, my pre-mades, and the ones I created on my own. And they were running through them. And the guys that wanted me to come over and DM for them. But that hasn't happened because my schedule and their schedules never seem to line up. But I went online just to see if there was any value on the old books like that. And I was surprised that my first edition books as a set was worth over $3,000. Or rather, that's what they were selling for on eBay and such, was over $3,000 for the first edition books and about $2,000 for the second edition. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun. Back in the day, what was it? Dungeons and Dragons and Risk, Monopoly, and then Trivia Pursuit. Those were the games. Yeah, if you had the first edition books in hardback, the collection was worth over $3,000. Yeah, I called my son up and told him to not make certain he didn't give any of my books away, that he had to hold on to them. He could use them, but don't let anybody else, and don't write in them or anything else. Because but that's some cash. Well, I played Risk sober. I've never done anything like that, Rex. I'm one of them people. While I've been high many times, it's always been on prescription drugs taken as prescribed. I've never done an illegal. I've never abused my meds or taken drugs I wasn't supposed to take. But I'm not saying I've never been close to them or never been tempted. But Trailer Park Wars, I have never heard of that one. That sounds like it could be strangely weird, strangely fun. Yeah, that sounds like it could be strangely fun or weirdly interesting, or it could go very, very wrong quickly. Oh. Can you tell us about that trial or that case that you were working on? Is there anything you can tell us in particular? Or is it nothing you can let us know about? Oh, now see, Ryan, if I had a character do something like that, I would be increasing the odds of him not catching that rope if they're doing something like that. I had a guy once. He was several times he'd done stuff very, very stupid, and he managed to roll saving throws every time. And they just it got to the point where it's like, I really wanted to look at his dice that he was rolling, make certain that they weren't loaded, to give him his saving throws that he was throwing. And but finally we come out of the dungeon, and basically I turned him into a living statue, because his character that he was playing was supposed to be making offers up to his deity. And he never did, so I had his deity turn him into a living statue. A hole in the roof case. 2 years. All right. So basically the client got 50 grand out of the 150, and the rest went basically to you guys. So y'all didn't lose any money, and he got what he needed repaired. Okay. You would think that they would have settled that a lot sooner. $150 grand. Youch. Well, it could have been a lot worse. That's I've seen 150 grand is not a whole lot of money these days. It can go in a hurry. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. That's good. That's good. Yeah, if he's been waiting 2 years on this settlement, you get 30% plus expenses. Okay. And if those 30% and expenses covers all your fees, and made it where you made a profit on it, that's good. That's good business. That's good. Everybody got paid. But is your wine and rum a expensed item? All right, Neil, we'll see you later. Let's see. If you're heading out to work, that means it's getting close to noonish. Yeah, it is. So, all right, I'm going to have to call it also. I've got to get ready to go to work myself, and it's that time of the day. Yeah, it's been 2 hours. So y'all have a good day. Thank you for joining up. Becca, I'm glad everything turned out well for you. And I'm glad the day ended on a happy shroom. We're going to have to enjoy this. So enjoy your ribs tonight, Becca. I wish I was having that myself now. I think I'm going to find ribs for Friday's meal. Wait a minute. Today's Thursday, right? Yep. So I got to go this. I do the cooking tomorrow. I think I'm going to do ribs. Yeah. Oh, and a bonus on top. Oh, wonderful. Well, thank you, Becca. Thank you much for stopping by. Neil, Ryan. I appreciate y'all coming in. And y'all have a good day. Becca, enjoy the rest of your day and your rum that you're going to break into here soon. Have a good one, all. We'll talk to you tomorrow for a little while. Bye. Rex, I didn't mean to ignore you two. Later. Thanks for stopping by.